Welcome to the Forged by Trust podcast. I'm your host, Dreeke, executive coach, former U.S. Marine, spy recruiter, best-selling author, and your trust and communication expert. Today's episode, Why Trust, is brought to you by my guest, best-selling author and behavior expert, Mark Bowden. Mark Bowden is voted the #1 body language professional in the world. So yes, now is the time to sit up straight. Founder of communication training company GesturePlane, Mark's clients include leading business people, celebrities, CEOs of Fortune 500, and prime ministers of G7 powers. He even trains the leadership at Zoom in how they can best show up on video calls. Mark is the author of 4 best-selling books and has a popular TEDx talk that has reached millions. An active media commentator on body language of celebrities and world leaders and a regular expert appearing on the Dr. Phil Show, Mark is also a main feature of YouTube's most popular body language show with over 70 million views, The Behavior Panel. Check him out and his services on truthplane.com. Coming up next on the Forged by Trust podcast.
You can really think carefully about human beings and groups of human beings and why they do what they do and uncover that from their movement, from their behavior. Talking about the gesture planes, for example, the horizontal height at which you gesture with your hands will have a fundamental effect on how the audience judge you, view you. But if I want other people to trust me, I'm going to more likely do open body language more than closed body language.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dreeke, and on the Forged by Trust podcast, we decode the interpersonal communication skills of the world's most acclaimed forgers of trust. We unlock the skills and techniques from spies, spy recruiters, master interrogators, globally recognized behavioral experts, C-suite executives, entrepreneurs, acclaimed authors, and thought leaders. Each episode provides specific actions that you can immediately apply to any aspect of your personal or professional life. Today's episode, Why Trust, is with Behavior Panel's Mark Bowden, voted the #1 body language expert in the world. Mark Bowden is a world-renowned body language expert, keynote speaker, and best-selling author, voted Global Guru's #1 body language professional in the world. Mark's unique GesturePlane system of nonverbal communication helps audiences maximize the power of using their own body language to stand out, win trust, and gain credibility every time they communicate. Founder of the communication training company GesturePlane, Mark's live and virtual keynote speeches and training prove invaluable to business leaders and teams from influential companies across the world, including Zoom, Shopify, Toyota, KPMG, American Express, the U.S. Army and NATO, and prime ministers of G7 nations. Mark has years of experience training business and political leaders across the globe on how to use their body language both live and over digital media most effectively for superior communication. During the episode today, we talk about overcoming adversity and becoming a body language expert through the arts, the body language of trust, strategies for trust, and inspiring others. Mark Bowden, there is no words to explain how excited I am for having you on the Forged by Trust podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I'm excited to be here as well. You know, we've met up now and again and we know each other in passing, but we've never had really the right time to sit down together and spend enough time. So here we are. It's fantastic.
So true. And I got my goosebumps going on my arms right now because the excitement is in me. And great people like you that are international nonverbal body language and really human behavior experts, it all comes from some amazing origin story, a backstory that created this spark when we were younger that inspired us to want to become who we are today. So Mark, what was that spark all those years ago that made you into this human behavior phenom in the world?
Yeah, lovely. Well, look, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that I think are important. One is that when I was a little kid back in England, we used to have a lot of beach holidays because obviously England, you know, Britain is surrounded by water. We're a little island. And so a lot of holidays you go to the beach. And I used to love looking at the sea and getting in rock pools, which are those, you know, pools of water that get left when the sea goes out. And as a little kid, you can get your hands in there and pull out sea creatures, you know, shrimps and crabs and look at sea anemones and starfish. And I used to love that movement, you know, especially the movement in your in your hand when you can kind of grab a creature and it moves, and then you set it off in the water and it starts to move in a way that you kind of wonder, you always kind of wonder what's going on in that thing's head. Not that actually some of those animals have much of a head at all. But I got fascinated by the movement in water. I was also massively a fan of Jacques Cousteau's undersea world. Yeah, you're nodding your head. In fact, I have the Ploprof watch that he made famous. Wow. Yeah, so I was massively into that undersea world, exploration, animals, how they move, and what are they thinking? Some of them, frankly, weren't thinking anything. And from that, just thought, but what about human beings? And how are we thinking? And how are we moving? So movement and thought got kind of shoved together at a very early age of curiosity and fascination.
So who did you go to the beach with?
Oh, mum and dad and my sister. And later on, I had another brother and sister who were born a lot later. Same mum and dad, but just born my sister 10 years after me. And we would head to the beach as well. And I guess that was an opportunity as a teenager at that point to be there with my younger brother and sister and be in the rock pools as well. So it was family holidays, Robin.
Where did all this curiosity come from, you think?
There was a British culture, I think, of the outdoors, and the sea. We're a seafaring nation because we're so small. It's like, right. Got to go and find some other country and invade it and find out what's there, So there's a culture. There was also a culture of natural history television. And learning from television, kids like me, we watched TV and we learned from TV. So when you think about it, over here I've got Desmond Morris's Man Watching, which is now People Watching, and you probably know it quite well. And that started off as a TV series in the 1970s, and so that developed my thought of you can really think carefully about human beings and groups of human beings and why they do what they do, and uncover that from their movement, from their behavior. And I was just fascinated by that, understanding people better, because people are confusing. I mean,
oh yeah. Who do you think it was that encouraged you the most to keep going in this area back then?
Yeah, I wasn't encouraged that much. Not that people weren't encouraging about stuff, but I am dyslexic. And so writing words like other people like words written down, I wasn't good at writing them down like everybody else needed them written down. Reading, I did a lot of, but it was hard work. I made it look like it wasn't hard work, but it really, really was hard work. What I found is I was really good at visual images and being able to draw and paint, and also look at visual images and know what they meant and what you could do with them at a pretty high level. So I was really good at that. And then I realized as well that being good at that meant that I would at school be put on art projects on my own. So I would be taken out of the class and they'd go, hey, Mark, do that. You do the big frieze for the hall of whatever, subject we're into at the moment. And I'd get put outside the classroom for a good week on my own, painting and drawing. And the main benefit of that was at the end of it, I would have something that people went, that's really good, that's brilliant. But I wouldn't be in a classroom where everybody was going, you're a complete idiot. Why are you so lazy? Why can't you do this? Why do you keep getting it wrong? Why aren't you concentrating on stuff? Because their idea was I was lazy and stupid and not concentrating. And they had a lot of, they couldn't quite work out why I could speak so well and had so much knowledge, but couldn't get it down on, and could outthink them, and quite annoyingly, and couldn't get it down on paper in any way. So it upset them, it annoyed them. I was annoying in class. Outside of class, I got, I guess, rewarded would be the right word to use. Yeah.
Wow. So when did they finally figure out you were dyslexic?
Yeah, it wasn't until a lot later. I went to university. Managed to get in, and I wrote an essay, but I gave it to a typist to type out. It was at that point where you had your dissertation, you had to have a typist type it out. And that was quite hard work because the typist was like, I can't read this stuff. I don't know what it is. So I had to sit down with the person and go, well, this word is this and this word is that. Because all my essays before that would just come back with just red marker all over them. Sure. People would just give up. They just give up on them. Anyway, so it got typed out and and then I got, well, almost thrown out for plagiarism. So they said, basically, the lecturer said, you can't have possibly written this. I said, yeah, I did. They said, well, no, you can't be thinking at that level. I said, well, yeah, I know I can't be thinking. Well, I am. You're just confused because nobody's ever written this down before. Right. Never thought of this. So it had to be sent to a bunch of other people, and I had to make representations, and other lecturers had to go, yeah, this is the way he thinks. Like if you hear him talk, he's thinking at this level. And I had to go, well, I think it's because it's been typed out that you think I must have copied it from a book, but go and find it in a book. You won't be able to find it anywhere because I just made this up out of my, it was academically backed up from other books. It's just nobody put the pieces together like I'd put them together. Anyway, so out of that came a diagnosis of dyslexia.
Oh my gosh. When you were pulled out of class and asked to do these projects on your own, how did that make you feel then?
Oh, just great. I mean, it was just fantastic, because there's nothing worse as a kid to look around you and everybody is, the stuff that you're meant to be good at, reading, writing. It's just like, it's just the basics. Like try and do anything without reading, writing. Reading, writing, and math. Try and do anything. You can't get a bank account. You can't. I ended up, just veering off a little bit, but I ended up, some of my first jobs were with offenders, ex-offenders, and at risk of offense. And the amount of dyslexia was huge because you can't get a job. You can't work you can't get a bank account. Yeah. You can't you can't write a resume. So you end up doing jobs which are cash only, and there are certain jobs. Sure. There's a certain, tranche of work that you can get cash only that ends up being a bit dodgy in the end, or you can't work for anybody. So and also society you become very, not antisocial, but anti some elements of society, because essentially they say that you're stupid. And so you go, I'll prove you wrong. And some people would do it in a criminal, in a criminal manner. So anyway, I liked being outside of it. I'm not, I would say we're all ambiverts. We're extrovert and introverted, depends. Of course, we have a bias. You're right. Of course, we have a certain bias, but we bias towards the situation. But my bias would be introvert. I just know the behaviors of an extrovert, and I can do them, and I can bring them out in the right moment. But my bias,
inauthentic, as you say,
being inauthentic, exactly that. But my bias would be towards introvert, really, I would say.
I'm curious, you overcame a lot. That's a lot to go through when you're younger. And you were obviously still high achieving to get into uni like you did. Who was it that was seeing the greatness in you then, you think?
I had an art teacher who it was great because I was the only person who did art. it was well, there was another student, Samantha, but she didn't show up very much. She was fantastic. She was great, but she was one of those students that was.
And about how old were you at this time frame?
By that time I was like 16, 17, doing what we call A levels at the time.
Right.
And I was the only person doing art, biology, and English.
What was your favorite art?
Oh, well, at the time, there was a brilliant art family called the Boyle Family, and what they did is they would get a map and they would throw a dart at it, and they would go to wherever that dart landed in England, and they'd find that piece of land, and they would reproduce that piece of land, like a large piece of it, let's just say, in some cases almost as big as this room. Okay, they would reproduce that in fiberglass. So if it landed in a field of grass, they'd reproduce that perfectly, photorealistically, 3D, in fiberglass, and then put it on a wall. So you'd walk into the gallery and it's like, well, that's a field on the wall. That's a piece of road, a piece of street on the wall, and it was perfectly reproduced. It was just, I found that really exciting. Number one, it's that shift of reference of like, it's on the ground, now it's on the wall. It's stuff you've walked on every day and thought nothing of it, and now it's in an art gallery. They've not made it any bigger or more colorful or any more interesting. All they've done is taken it from outside, randomly, something random from outside to inside, and put it on the wall. And then also there's the thing of, they did it as a family. It was like mum, dad, and 2 kids, older kids, as I recall.
Right.
That whole thing of like, that's what, and it was the thing of like, that's what they do. Like, if I could get away with doing that, that would be
How fantastic.
Yeah, I loved that at the time. Anyway, there was an art teacher there, Mr. Mutton, Brian Mutton, and what he did, which I think was brilliant, is that he'd have things that he wanted to do artistically, and he'd kind of like go, well, I'm going to do my thing and you do your thing alongside. And then every now and again we go to art galleries, we drive out to an art gallery and we go and see stuff like that, which for me would be just amazing. And then a lot of the time he'd just set a project and go, okay, get on with it, and come and visit me every now and again and go,
Right.
that's really good. Keep on going with that, and be just little nudges and bits of help, and just leading by example, and leading by giving opportunity, just opening up for somebody going, go and look at that with me and see what you think. And it was a brilliant way of learning. I got the highest mark in the whole of England for art A-level that year, the work. I never got the work back because it all went on tour.
Sure.
To show people what kind of, I don't think it was 100, it wasn't 100%, but it was like a 98 or a 99 or something like that.
So back when you're 16 and so UK renowned for your art, what path did you think you're going to walk for providing for yourself for the rest of your life, or at least for the next couple of years? What was the goal? Well,
yeah, I really at the time really kind of wanted to be a visual artist, but it wasn't very clear to me that I didn't know anybody who had that as a job.
Sure.
I didn't know that was really, I thought it was amazing, but I couldn't see it as a job. And I'd done a lot of theatre, I think more simply because I'd been kind of put into it at an early age, and I could do it. And people had said, oh, you're really good at that. And that's a big thing as a kid. Somebody goes, you're really good at that. It's like, okay, well, I'll do that then. Whether you like it or not.
When were you put into theater at a young age?
Oh, at a young age, like, I don't know, like I remember doing it, my mum saying, yeah, Mark will do that. And I ended up as a kid on stage, not quite knowing what the hell's going on. Yeah, so and then down the line, people going, you're good at that. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And the thing is that I could get into higher education, a university, to do performing arts, and they didn't want high grades. And because I wasn't going to get high grades, I mean, right. I got high grade in art, but everything else I just scraped. Biology was good because I could draw diagrams. English, it's tough because you've got to be able to write. So that I scraped through. I had to retake math. You had to have an O level in math. I couldn't get that. Not that I don't know about math, but I can't write down the numbers in the right order. Right. So I know the answer. I just can't write it down in the right order. So it's just nonsense. It's just people look at it and go, it's nonsense. So I had to retake that at the low. I had to get a GCSE lowest level. I had to retake it that, I think, 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the biggest stumbling block. But basically the university went, okay, 2 E's, which is the lowest marks possible. If you get 2 E's, you can come.
And you went for art.
Yeah. So performing art. Yeah. So it was really that mixture of performance of human beings, moving.
Right.
And art, which is, what that is another story. But my feeling is art is designed to remind you that you're alive. That's all. It's just to make you go flipping out. Yeah. Alive. Amazing.
You described the challenges that people that are dyslexic, especially earlier in age, have with fitting in, with being accepted, and obviously being bullied to an extent as well. What do you think kept you from going down a dark path that a lot of them did that you shared? What kept you positive?
Yeah. Well, it's tough. I mean, it's hard because it was very distressing and confusing more than anything. Super confusing, like really confusing. It's great. It was interesting because I was in the lowest. We had sets, so there's the smart kids and the not smart kids, and I was in the lowest low, and the other kids in with me were were aggressive and violent. Lovely guys. I mean, lovely. And it meant I was very, very safe because I was their friend.
Right.
And so there was no way I would get picked on by anybody because when you got them as your friends and and you're in that same world of being the stupid ones. Now they were probably undoubtedly having a tough time at home. I would think, I think probably, dad or maybe mum or dad or whoever was looking after them wasn't doing that particularly well and was probably being violent towards them. And they were, and one of them was certainly in poverty as well. Like you could just tell by the way he was dressed.
So would you say your family life is probably the thing that really saved you well?
Yeah. I mean, we weren't at that, my mum and dad were great mum and dad. And we had, though we didn't have a lot of money, there was always something to it. You'd always got enough. A pair of shoes that weren't too ripped.
Right.
You'd always got some kind of clothes on that weren't too bad. Whereas one of the guys who I was with in that lowest set, there were three of us. Yeah, whether he'd come to school with a pair of, sometimes with a pair of shoes that hadn't completely fallen to bits. Often completely falling off his feet.
All right. So we discovered we're dyslexic. I got a hard time saying that word too. What was that like? What happened next?
Well, that's always a relief because then you can go, okay, right, I get it. Okay, and now I could probably, say that, though I didn't really start telling people that until a lot later on.
Right.
When I started to get confident about going, hang on, that's like, I'm not going to try and battle. I remember the first time going into a bank and I'm taking in a check. And they're like, well, can you write in the numbers on the thing? It's like, that's super embarrassing because I know it's going to be a disaster.
Right.
And I said, yeah, no, I can. I said, if I write them, just so you know, if I write them in, they're not going to be the numbers won't be I'm dyslexic. So the numbers won't be in the order that you'd probably best like them. And my guess is that you have this job because you put numbers in the order that most people like them. So look, I can do it or you can do it. I don't really mind, but I'm just telling you what will happen if I do it.
You made it about them.
And they took it and went, okay. Started filling it out. I remember the first time I was doing I'd already started way on early, was lecturing at universities in what I really knew about, visual imagery and nonverbal communication and communication. And I remember I was at Schulich. This is probably about 17 years ago or so. I was at Schulich Business School, York University, and often I wouldn't write stuff on a board or on a chart at all. It's just too risky. Somebody's going to go, oh, you spelt it wrong, or it's like this, and you're meant to be the person with the hierarchy, with the knowledge. And I would produce slides for people, but even those had got blinding errors that I just couldn't see, and people go, oh, you've got all the letters round the wrong way, and it was anyway. So I think, you know what, I'm going to write this down. I say, look, I'm going to write some stuff on the chart here. By the way, I'm dyslexic, which means that not all the letters will be in the right order for you. Okay, they may be in an order that you're not able to read. Okay, but it's just the way I am. I'm good with it. You'll have to deal with it.
You'll have to deal with it.
I started writing. So yeah, after a while, I just went, look, you're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I've dealt with it enough now. And look, and work it out.
Right.
Work it. Your brain's making this stuff up anyway.
Right.
Just make it up my way for now, and then you can go back to your way, which would be the rest of your life. It's like you're probably going to be in a lecture theatre with me for maximum a day, and then we'll never meet again.
Right.
Let's do it my way for a day, and then you can go back to your way.
So we get out of uni in the area of art, visual art.
Performing arts. So visual art and very specifically visual theatre. So how you tell stories with
Right.
pictures, moving pictures with moving people who talk, and I'd really focused on that because one of my lecturers, John Wright, who is one of the leading authorities in mask theatre in the whole of Europe and was a trailblazer at the time. I was working with him in doing mask theatre, which is essentially when you get a fixed face and you put it on your face, and then you perform in such a way that you get the illusion for an audience. One of the things that happens is you get the illusion for the audience that the mask actually moves, because it doesn't. Their brain makes it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you can, we're making up a huge amount of what we're seeing. You can purposely get them to make up stuff. And through that, you can change their feelings and emotions really, really quickly. You can get them to bond into your breathing patterns. You can start to get them to breathe with you. You can get them to hit emotions really fast and then project them onto you. So they think you're a brilliant performer, but you've just been triggering their emotions.
How often did you do that?
Oh, we were on a daily basis. I mean, I was
many years?
Training on it, and then toured across the world with theatre companies doing visual theatre, mask theatre. Yeah.
There's your reps right there.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
Hours and hours and hours and hours and hours for months and months on end across the world, just getting moving audiences, basically moving them. Again, art, reminding them they're alive. So getting their bodies to follow a train of rhythm with you so that you take them through an arc of emotions. They project it onto you and the characters, and they go, oh, that character's sad. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just doing movement.
Was there words too, or is it just body movement?
No, just body movement.
Oh my gosh. And no face, because the face is fixed.
Yeah, the face is fixed. And what it meant is that you could have several people doing the same character.
Right.
Do amazing illusions where a character walks off there and comes on there. Because if everybody knows the same pattern of movement, you can't tell who's doing it. Even height, the audience won't be able to go, that's a really small one of them. They don't get it, because they start to get so swept up in the illusion.
Yeah.
Because it's real for them, because they're having real feelings and big feelings, because they're not concentrated on the words. It's not that words can't produce feelings, they can, but it's not the fastest route. I mean, the fastest route is rhythm, is getting a drum out. It's the fastest route, because people will breathe with the rhythm, and the rhythms the rhythms, cadences of breathing produce specific emotions.
You're a body language artist.
Yeah. I mean that's the interesting thing about, you say, all of us in this world of nonverbal have often an interesting story and often never the same story. Because
I've never heard this before my entire life.
Yeah, and I think and that's why, I think the work that I was doing made quite an impression in that nonverbal world, because nobody had thought about some of it. When I was talking about the gesture planes, for example, the horizontal height at which you gesture with your hands will have a fundamental effect on how the audience view you, how the viewer views you. Say the same words, but gesture at a different horizontal height, and people will project onto you a very different feeling attached to those words, and it's predictable. Yeah. That's the thing. You can predict what the theory of mind they'll have about you. And nobody, that wasn't written down anyway. Right. So I know nobody knew that. And I'd read everybody else's work and been to see everybody else. And I'd be going, they don't know what I know. They have no idea what I know. And very few people in theatre knew what I knew as well, because it was such a niche area.
What an incredible blend. So what was next after theater?
Yeah, so I did that for a long, long time. Got very, very engaged in, well, how you tell stories with pictures, how you do that in film and TV and theatre. And so worked in all those areas, not only as a performer, but a producer, director, a fixer. Like I'd go in and fix stuff for people. They'd be going,
Right.
well, this curtain call isn't causing the audience to stand up and applaud. How do we get them to do that? Like, because at this point now, I'm a mechanic.
Right.
Just I go in and go, you pull that lever on them. Well, how do we pull that lever? You just do.
So I saw you doing it in the TED Talk, moving everyone's emotions by yours.
Same. Yeah. Same thing. Same thing. Yeah. People love that TED Talk. They're like, wow, you really change our feelings. It's like, yeah, this is just.
I saw method acting coming right out there.
It's just technique.
Yeah.
All it is, it's just you've got somebody who's an engineer on stage just pulling levers on you. And the audience's belief is that you're feeling it. It's like, no, I don't. What I'm feeling makes zero difference. The only important thing is what you're feeling. And knowing that you will project it onto me, you'll make it me rather than you.
So I'm curious about that, Mark. One of the things that engenders trust as we start to move our transition that a little bit is that congruency between what people are saying and the emotion they have, because they pick up on that in our brains. And you just described it as just doing it, but not necessarily feeling it. How are you doing that? Because how are you being congruent with everything that's coming out of you, even if you're not necessarily feeling it, or are you feeling it?
No, you're not. No, you don't have to be. Now look, there becomes kind of what happens here is kind of a moral judgment where people start to go, yeah, but if you're not feeling it, it's not true. Well, that's just not accurate, because I know people who think it, but they don't have sometimes the capacity to feel it. But that doesn't mean they don't want other people to feel that they're feeling it. And that's not a benefit to the whole society. And so to be able to perform the action so other people go, oh, I think they really feel it, and there's trust there. And look, maybe further down the line, as those actions and that person gets supported, they might start to feel it more. But you have to start somewhere. And somebody once said to me, don't let the cold hand of truth spoil a great story.
Right.
I think they actually said the dead cold hand of truth. Yeah. So there are certain situations where it would be as morally wrong to go, well, if you're not feeling it, it's not true, and therefore you're being inauthentic. It's like, no, there is the authenticity of the desire of, I want to feel like that. I want people to know I feel like that, but I can't feel like that, but I'm going to do the actions of it. And if they believe that I feel like that, that's good. That's good, but I'm not feeling like that. I wish I could, but I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. And if I keep on persevering at that, maybe one day or 1 minute or 1 hour, I might actually feel like that. But I could just give up right now and go, well, I'll never feel like that, and nobody will ever believe me that I feel like that. I mean, you could live in that world. I, Robin, refuse to live in that world. That's the world for me, Robin, that I used to live in as a kid.
Oh yeah.
And you're stupid and you can't do that, and you're not, because you can't do it right now, you can never achieve. You can't have it. It's like, that's nonsense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry for the digression here, but I love British history. I became transfixed studying, especially from Winston Churchill during World War II and everything. And I got into studying Queen Elizabeth this past year because I read Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday, and he really highlights the discipline of her. So I've been watching The Crown, and literally the episode where the tragedy of the school children that got buried from the coal mine disaster, and how she so desperately wanted to feel and weep, but couldn't. This made me think of that when you're describing that.
Yeah. I remember Robin working with a guy, very big, famous technology company in Canada. And this guy was the head of competitive intelligence, which you probably know what exactly that means. But ultimately his job is to protect the assets of the company, to go and find the assets of other companies, and to see if anybody is being a spy in his company, and whether he could get anybody to spy in a competitive company. His father had actually been the head of our Secret Service here in Canada. Anyway, he was having a tough time because nobody trusted him. Well, you have certain jobs where nobody probably will trust you because you're a corporate spy. You're a corporate spy chief, essentially. The other thing is neurally, he didn't have, because of his background and his the way he'd been brought up and who he'd been brought up with, his mum and his dad, and some specifics around them, and his neurotype. Like, I would look at him and I'd say, I don't know whether you love me or whether you hate me, whether you want to kiss me right now or hit me. I just can't tell from you, from your face. And like, I'm an expert in this and I have no idea.
Giving you no effect.
Giving me nothing.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah, that's rough.
And I would provoke and provoke and provoke. And he would give me zero.
Wow.
And I said, so if that's happening for me, I wonder how it is for everybody that you work around. They just can't tell how you're feeling right now. And he said, well, what you're telling me right now makes me very sad. But he said that with zero emotion, and his words had zero emotion in them, but he meant it.
Right.
He absolutely meant. He didn't know. There was something. He understood sadness, and clearly he could feel it, or he could attach a word to something inside him, but he couldn't let me see or hear anything of that. Well, over time, I was able to give him some behaviors
that
might cause other people to kind of go, oh, yeah, I think he's happy right now, or I think he's empathetic right now, or, because then he could function way better in a society, have more friends.
Sure.
For example.
I think it's a lot more common than people realize. Is there anything they can do to engender some trust?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's so I think number one, more open body. Let's make it really simple. Just more open body language.
Right.
Okay. And by what I mean by open, if you don't know what open, if you're listening and watching and thinking, what is open? Open for me is like when you come in from a cold day and you stand in front of a warm fire. What does your body do in order to warm up? What parts of you do you need most warm fastest? And where are you opening up? And cold, closed body language is like what you do if you've got no coat on, no jacket on, and you have to stand in the middle of the street on a super cold day. I mean, minus centigrade temperatures. What does your body start to do? What do you start to protect? That's what we'll call closed body language. Neither of them mean anything. Just because somebody's doing that cold, closed body language doesn't mean they're cold or closed. It may do in some situations, but as you well know, it's all contextual, and we're looking for clusters of this. Right. But if I want other people to trust me, I'm going to more likely do open body language more than closed body language, even if I'm talking about stuff that my body would congruently be more closed about. Right. Still going to perform more open body language. And here's the next part to this, Robin. I'm going to see how it changes my feelings as well. That's what I'm really I can do very little about other people's behavior in the world, right? And other people's feelings in the world. I can do my best, but I don't own their body or their mind. Okay. But I do own mine. That is mine. And so all I can do is do what I do with my body and go, well, how am I feeling right now? What's it doing for me? And then look out again and go, is it making any difference out there? Do I like it? Do I like the difference that it's making? Anyway, I hope that makes sense, Robin.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings us, because we're talking about trust, brings us to the title of the episode, Why Trust?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we were leading up to this interview, I was talking about this because it's fascinating, this whole idea of why do we have any of these things that we have? Why do we have love? Why do we have sadness? Like, well, how useful is sadness? Well, we have it, so it must form some kind of use. Anger, like how useful is that? Gets us into a lot of trouble, but also, the usefulness is that it can pull people into a team really quickly, or get people out of your way. It can save your life. Right. In some cases, get you life. In some cases, if you have that anger in the wrong place with the wrong tool in your hand and you don't control it, you can end up doing life. So it's the same for trust. Like, why do we have this thing called trust, and why would you and I dedicate ourselves to this idea of like, well, trust is really important. Why is it important? Well, I think it's important because how else would we be able to get on with moving into the future? If we, Robin, decided to do a project together, whatever that might be, do a project together, and we're going to commit some resource to it, maybe just time, but I go, okay, I'll spend a month doing that with you to try and get an end result. Like, ultimately, I'm not going to move forward unless I have some levels of trust. Do I trust you'll be able to bring the resource that you say you'll bring? Well, I mean, I guess I could do, in business, we could do due diligence, and I could go, well, show me your bank account, or show me your store to see whether you have that resource in there. Or I could get a third party to go in and check Robin's store and make sure he has the resource that he said he would bring to this. And so I trust a third party that they've, or they maybe show me photographs. Yeah, he has everything. But then what about the things that we can't kind of test like that? Like, will you be on time? Like, will you do what you said you were going to do? It's like, well, I'll write that down and I'll get that to you next week, and then we'll move forward from there. Well, so now I'm going to do my part. How do I trust you're going to do your part? I can't have somebody following you around. I mean, I could, some people do, but I'm not going to do that. So when you say, yeah, Mark, I'm going to do that, do I trust you? Now, I might go, well, he said he'd do it the last time and he did do it. So now I've got a pattern. I go, okay, well, I can trust him because I've seen this pattern. And that's people we know, know. But what about people we don't know? Like, how do we walk over that edge of going, I will work with you, I'll marry you, I will, how do we walk over that edge when we have no previous history? Like, I'm going to say blind trust, but it isn't blind, because we're picking up on some elements. Right. Say, well, that is good enough for me to lay a bet on. Anyway, that's I would love your opinion on this, because you've written more books than I have on absolutely trust.
Well, it goes to bedrock to everything you're saying is, does this person make me feel safe? Is this collaboration going to be safe for me and moving forward into the future? And so are there things you're seeing that people are giving away in their first few moments of the interaction that'll tell them this person's safe or not safe?
Yeah. So let's do not safe. Erratic, like an erratic rhythm.
Right.
Like not completing action. That becomes quite erratic. If I go to gesture out like I did there, push out, but I don't ever really complete it, and I keep bringing it back. Yeah. Yeah, your brain goes, what the hell's going on? I won't he finish that? And then if I move on to something else,
squirrel, shiny things, right?
right. So we think squirrels are quite erratic because we don't live in their world,
right?
What the Germans would call the Umwelt. We don't live in there. We don't have their mind. We don't know what they're looking out for. The squirrel is having a totally sane day, totally sane day. For us, it's like they're a squirrel. Look at that, totally squirrely,
right?
Yeah. Because we don't know what's important to them, and therefore we don't understand fully their behavior. I mean, squirrel behaviorists do. They're like, yeah, it's just normal squirrel having a squirrely.
So transparency, you're saying. So because the squirrel's not being transparent, we don't trust.
No, squirrel. No, exactly. If the squirrel could write a manual and go, look, guys, here's what you're seeing here. When I do this, what it means is this. I'll be totally transparent with you. You know, one thing that I often do with clients of mine who are having problems with trust, not only being trusted but trusting other people, is I go, write a manual for it to work you. Like, write me the manual, which is like, if I see this behavior, what does it mean? If I want you to do this behavior, what should I do? What button should I press? Because I always go, look, you know, back in the day when we had video recorders, a video recorder is a simple machine. It's not even complex. It's
Right.
simple. It's not trying to put a man on the moon. That is complicated. Yeah, but not simple. But a VCR is simple. I couldn't work it. I could never work one of those things in order for it to record a certain station at a certain time. And the reason is I couldn't be bothered to read the manual.
Right.
You've probably got some ideas of why I wouldn't read
Right.
by now, but I didn't read the manual. And so if we can't even operate a simple machine without reading the manual, how well do you think we can do with a complex thing?
Right.
Like we're not even complicated, we're complex because we live in association with so much else, the environment and other people and animals and, you know, gods and all kinds of things that are abstracts that are out there. It's like stuff
Stories.
you can't, stuff you can't see. I'm in relationship with stuff I can't even see, ideas that have been passed to me by people I never knew.
Right.
It's like, that's a level of complexity. So I'm like, okay, so if you're having trouble with this, write a manual. Like, if you want to get me angry, do X. I guarantee.
What a cool idea.
Accept me. Yeah, if you want to make me happy, if you want me to deliver you X work by X day, here's what you say to me. You know, because people often go, well, I tell them, like I told them to deliver the report by X day, and it was a week, by on time.
Then you can say, did you follow the manual?
Exactly. It's like, well, have you asked them to tell me, what do you mean by on time?
Right.
I meant Wednesday. Well, did you say what time on Wednesday? Well, I guess 9 8. Well, I guess, like, when is on time on Wednesday? Like, give me an exact. Yeah. Oh, and tell me what will happen if it isn't. How will you feel? So it's like, if you don't, you know, I would like the report by Wednesday, 9 a.m., because if I don't get it by Wednesday, 9 a.m., I get really anxious. And here's why. The people who are superior to me, they require it by, you know, X time on X date. And I worry that if I don't deliver to them, my job is at risk. Can you help me with that? Then another human being is able to go, yeah, sure, of course. No, I want you to feel secure. So yeah, absolutely, on your desk, 9 a.m., absolutely, I want you to feel okay. Or they can go, frankly, I don't care. I'd like you to lose your job. You know, and then you know, don't you?
Yeah. No,
It's like,
no
okay,
doubt.
great. Now we know where we are then. Now I know.
Mark, you are absolutely a treasure trove that you can't even say we brushed the surface. We took a pinprick off the surface with what we're chatting about. As our time's winding down, what's something or a few things that you wanted to make sure you did share that I was a horrible host and forgot to ask?
No, well, I could never accuse you of being a horrible host because you're a great host and your questions are fantastic. And what's great about this interview, by the way, is, you know, we've got out stories and ideas here that other people don't bring out. So you're truly excellent at what you do.
Very kind. The challenges you went through to gain your passion and your reps in understanding human behavior it's both traumatic and tremendous.
Well, you know, look, I mean, at the time it felt tricky, but I didn't know it was traumatic. People who,
of course,
people
you never
know
do in the moment.
You never do in the moment. So, you know, listen, you
remarkable.
know, here's what I'm going to say actually about this. You know, look, you could go and, if you want to find me, Mark Bowden, Google me, you find me, find
all
the
in the show
behavior
notes
panel as well, you know, all in the show notes. But here's what I really would like people to do. If you ever see anybody in your life doing something that you think is good, like anything that you see, tell them, go, it's really good. I really like that. Don't hold back on that. Tell people what they're good at, because you don't know what difference it could make to people. People are told very little what it is that they're doing well, and they're often told what it is that they're getting wrong. And it's not that you shouldn't tell people what they're getting wrong. Of course you should. But you got to have the right balance. And the balance, I think, for most people isn't as good as it could be. So for me today, if you see somebody, doing something that you think, it's really quite good, don't keep it to yourself. Say it out loud to them.
Mark, you do an amazing job of sharing your skill sets and observations with the world and making it a better place. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do and sharing it with me today.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on your show. It's a true honor.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Forged by Trust. If you took away at least one new idea, make a note of it and pass it on to someone else who may need it. If you're interested in more information about how I can help you forge your own trust-building communication and interpersonal strategies as your coach or as a trusted advisor for your organization, please visit my website at www.peopleformula.com. I'm looking forward to sharing my next Forged by Trust episode with you next week when we chat with Greg Hartley and uncommon skills for everyday life.